While everyone's coming in and getting settled, we're just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So you should be able to see me. You should be able to hear me, hopefully. And then you should see a chat on your right side of your screen. And just to make sure that everybody can see and hear me, I would love to know what you are reading right now. So drop that in the chat, and I will share those out in just a minute after some more housekeeping stuff. So this evening, along with the chat, you're going to see messages in there from Amy Mather from OPL. She's going to drop links for you guys of our book list of programs and events that we're going to talk about, our reading challenge. So look for her in the chat to click on those links and to get access to our books. Let's see. Oh, okay. Kim's reading Shark Heart. Kim, I was just talking about the two of our other people today. Clara and the Sun. Let's see, Flying Solo, Homegoing by Jessie. Teresa's reading Wrong Place, Wrong Time. Tara's reading Romney. Let's see, Fraud by Zadie Smith. The Burglary by Betty Metzger. Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. Okay, now that we know the chat is working, so a couple things for the evening. In a minute, I'm going to tell you guys what to expect, but first thing I want to make sure you guys don't miss is that there will be a chance to win prizes at the end of the evening. So at the bottom of your screen in the middle, you should see a little link that says enter here to win prizes. Click on that. It's a very short survey, and that'll enter you into our drawing. We're going to draw winners after the intermission. So get entered in there. I'll give you several other more reminders before the end of the evening. And the prizes for this evening are, we have four $50 gift cards to local bookstores. So that is the Book Nook, the Bookworm, Dundee Book Company, and Next Chapter. So don't forget to enter into that drawing. Okay, so let's talk about what you guys can expect this evening. So tonight you're going to hear from 8 OPL staff members with a short intermission in the middle. So I'm going to call these staff members book talkers throughout the evening. They're going to take 8 to 10 minutes each to talk about 4 or 5 books that they are really excited about. So these might be new, they might be old titles. They're going to be different genres. They're going to be fiction, nonfiction. And then during those talks, the staff members are also going to talk about various programs and services from here at OPL. So you might hear them talk about the OPL Reading Challenge. So this is a series of 12 challenges designed. We make a new one each year just to help you kind of expand your reading, push yourself outside your reading comfort zones. So book talkers might mention that a book that they're talking about would fit one of those challenges. If you have not stepped into a local branch, don't forget to stop in and grab a reading challenge notebook. You can track all of your reading challenge titles. You can make little reviews in that, and then you can enter at the end of the year for prizes for this too. The other thing they might mention is OPL's reading challenge or book club bag collection. If you did not know, we have over 700 titles in book club bags for teens, kids, and adults. So if you have a book club bag or a book club that meets outside the library and you guys want to get a title and read together, this is just a bag of 7 to 10 items of the same title. Comes with a discussion guide. You just check it out like you would a normal item and then share it with your book club and then bring it back when you're done. So you might hear that titles that book talkers are mentioning are available in a book club bag. And then another thing you might hear is about the Book Drop podcast. This is OPL's weekly podcast where we talk about basically all things books and kind of nerd out about pop culture and literature in the book world. You might hear book talkers mention that a title is mentioned on the Book Drop because that is one of the OPL Reading Challenge categories this year. You also might recognize a couple of our book talkers. Actually, many of our book talkers have been on the podcast at some point, so you might recognize their voice or their faces. If you're not familiar, the Book Drop is on basically any podcast app, so just find it on your favorite. And if it's not on your favorite podcast app, you're going to just email me and I will fix that for you. Let's see. Last couple of things I want to mention. If you stopped by our branch and picked up a Book Bash booklet, you can follow along in the evening. So this will give you a little place to take notes You'll see on the slides that everybody's name's on the slide so you can tell who's speaking. Also, the book page of the title that they're talking about is going to be at the bottom of the slides show on the screen so you can follow along. We will be dropping the link to our digital list in the chat. So if you want to place holds on items as we're talking about them, go to that list. A little heads up, we were having some issue with our catalog earlier today. So it's possible that if you click on that and you can't get to the digital materials, go straight to Libby and put them on hold or check them out there. Apologize for that issue. Hopefully it will be fixed very soon, but you should be able to place holds on all the physical items in that list. Okay, I think that is everything I had to tell you guys. So give me a second. I'm going to bring up our first book talker and introduce them. So 1 second. Okay, our first book talker this evening, Ellie currently serves as OPL's outreach librarian, which means you'll likely see her out at community events and driving around town in OPL's mobile library Poppy. Her reading leans toward the weird and literary, especially enjoying lightly speculative sci-fi and horror, satire, and weird and surreal fiction. When asked what book she'd like to be marooned on an island with, her answer was Remembrance of Things Past by Marcel Proust, but said, sorry, I'm not reading that. I just need Kindling and it's really long. Please welcome Ellie.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Erin, for that introduction. I'm so sorry, but I do just have to burn the book to stay warm on the desert island. In any case, folks, let's get right into it. My first book of the night is called Honey and Spice, and it's by Bolu Babalola. It follows Kiki Banjo, who is a student at Whitewell University, and she's best known for her radio show called Brown Sugar. On air, she dishes both advice and blind item scandal, kind of Gossip Girl or Dumois style. And she pairs these segments with the perfect R&B soundtracking for every accomplishment, argument, and accidental situationship her listeners write in about. Her relentless focus, both academically and interpersonally, is empowerment for her fellow Black female students. So when a comedy of errors leads to her being caught kissing a man she's just anonymously dragged through the mud, her peers and, truth be told, Kiki herself begin to question her integrity. Unfortunately, Kiki and Malachi's academic aspirations are more aligned than they have any right to be. Will Kiki find a way to follow her own advice, pursuing both her dreams and her fancies? Or will the so-called waste man of Whitewell bring her radio tower down? This book is funny, it's flirty, it's fiery, and Babalola's favorite rom-com is 10 Things I Hate About You. She can't stop singing its praises. And to me, it shows so clearly because the banter in this book is amazing. It's a great audiobook for my listeners. It has kind of a radio play formatting. So it's got different audio treatments for some segments that are kind of film interviews, different radio portions, and the narrator has a gorgeous accent. We have this one in print book, downloadable audiobook, ebook, and book club bag. There's some delicious food described in this book, and it's got that built-in kind of playlist element because of the radio show. So it'd be such a fun book to kind of like eventize your book club about. And if you do that, you have my email, drop your girl an invite. Next, we're going to talk about a kind of different type of romanticism. So my second book is Chorus of the Underground Sea by Cassandra Montag. This book was published in 2021, and we have it just in a print book. If that author's name sounds familiar to you, it's probably because Cassandra is a lifelong Nebraskan and one of our former Omaha Reads authors. I was really excited to see she published this because she started writing poetry really early in her career, but I believe this is her first book of poems. And I think it's a perfect little winter read, so you're hearing about it at the right time. These poems follow kind of themes of interiority and femininity told through naturalist observations with an emphasis on sort of banal or ephemeral moments that we maybe don't pay that much attention to. To me, I love this because it's poetry for everyone. She's not a writer who delves too far into like experimental or non-traditional formats, but who really like employs restraint thoughtfully. The simplicity in this book makes it feel a little familiar, like a collection you've been like carrying around in your back pocket for years. I loved how this book made me kind of reassess this phrase that I hear thrown around a lot, romanticizing your life, when people talk about like hanging eucalyptus in their shower or baking focaccia or like adopting a new twee hobby. But when I hear romanticizing your life, I think about, you know, building up these moments of disappointment and yearning and dissatisfaction and kind of finding something meaningful in those as well. What I like about this poetry book is that it does just that. It reflects these moments that aren't on their face beautiful and doesn't try to make them into more than they are, but invites you to kind of explore and experience them just the same. So if you want to like visit some characters and some narratives that are like maybe not in direct sunlight, but you maybe want to like spend some time in the storm cellar with them, then take it slow and pick up Cassandra Montag's poetry collection, Chorus of the Underground Sea. All right, next we're going for a very different mood. My next pick is called Last Acts, and it's by Alexander Sammartino. We have it in both print book and downloadable audiobook, and it just got published last month. So if you like to be kind of on the up and up in publishing, this is going to be an exciting one for you. So we meet David Rizzo, our protagonist, as he's thundering down the highway en route to pick up his estranged son from the hospital, where Nick's been revived from a temporarily fatal overdose. He's overcome with gratitude for their mutual second chance, and Rizzo is sure that the miracle of Nick's resurrection will reverberate through his failing firearms store. But I don't know if you know this, but Narcan is only effective for humans and not for businesses. Nick is managing a complicated gratitude for his life, and he's determined to help his dad's dreams come true. But finding success isn't the same as keeping it, and prosperity for the Rizzos brings along unfamiliar peril. I won't ruin the story by saying too much, but it really is a true American tragicomedy. It's kind of satiric literary fiction with a pinch of thrill. The story is entertaining, and I both like laughed and cringed of recognition of these characters in my own personal life, but I didn't feel like it was dismissive, disrespectful, or pandering, which I think these stories can be sometimes. It's a flawed, compelling character story, and they're dealing with kind of quintessentially American class and social issues. If you wake up every day missing Breaking Bad, I think that this prodigal son Shill's shotgun story might be the read for you. It's a debut by a student of George Saunders, so you know it's going to be meticulous and sharp. And I also found it pretty unputdownable. So that is Last Acts by Alexander Sammartino. Another quick kind of tonal change here. I'm really grateful for the Read a Book About or Featuring Technology and Culture challenge this year, because it's giving me an opportunity to talk with y'all about a favorite book of mine. It's called Seek You, A Journey Through American Loneliness. This is by Kristen Radke, and we have it in print and downloadable audiobook. It's a nonfiction graphic novel, and I kind of like to describe it as one of those graphic novels for people who aren't sure if they like them yet. Publishers call this a graphic essay because it is just nothing but truth kind of in and out. So this book examines the different technologies and events, historical and temporary, that alleviate, exacerbate, or complicate loneliness and our experiences of it. If you enjoyed your required humanities courses like sociology, anthropology, or psychology, reading this will feel like the lecture that you walked out of and like could not stop telling your friends about what you learned that day, which to me is kind of like a moment I'm always trying to get back to nerd-wise. Some of the subjects that Radke writes about include the invention of the laugh track, which I found super compelling, chat rooms, a British call center that offers lonely seniors a chance to talk with someone, Henry Harlow's maternal separation monkey experiments. If you know about those, you know, and I'm so sorry you know, because it's very sad. what Yayoi Kusama's bright patterned art has to do with isolation and the mythology of the American cowboy. So she covers like a wild breadth of things, but it really feels like a cohesive piece. And I just love it so much. The illustrations, as you can kind of see, are realist, collage kind of oriented. They've got varied frames, so it's not just kind of like a straight comic book with those really defined sections. And I found her use of monochromatism for different thematic moments really effective. So if that sounds good to you, pick up Seek You, A Journey Through American Loneliness by Kristen Radke. And I'm going to bring it home from my section tonight with one more story, kind of about solitude as well. This book is called Open Throat by Henry Hoke. We have it in both print and, again, downloadable audiobook. And I just want to pause and thank our MC, Erin, who brought this book to kind of OPL staff's attention. And I think a lot of us are really obsessed with it. What's more is that she did mention it on the book drop, which is one of the reading challenges that I think people find tricky sometimes. So if you need one of those, this is the one. So this book is loosely based on the story of mountain lion P22, who lived for at least 10 years in the smallest home range that's ever been recorded for an adult male mountain lion. Most live in spaces that are 30 to 125 square miles, but Griffith Park in LA is bordered by dangerous expressways. It totals 9, and that is where our pal P22 lived. So this slightly fictionalized Puma protagonist observes human behavior. He alternates between these apt malapropisms and charming poetics. At one point, he overhears some humans reference the idea scarcity mindset, but he hears it as scare space city mindset, and that comes up a lot, and it's just charming and beautiful every time he does it. He develops a tenuous peace pact with the human residents of Griffith Park. He struggles for survival and reflects on the alarming and affecting experience that brought him to call such a small space his home. If you found Simba escaping the stampede distressing as a child, y'all haven't felt anything yet. This is like the adult version for you. This book is moving, unconventional, it's funny, it's kind of like fable-like a little bit. And I am personally always searching for really short books, which this is, you could finish it in one sitting, and books written for adults with non-human narrators, because I think that that is part of the magic of childhood that we left behind. But this book is not for kids. It starts out with a really wild scene for adults, so do not read it out loud to your tiny ones. I like to think of it as like if Melissa Broder, the kind of weirdo internet writer and author, and Ocean Vuong had a one-night stand and Melissa didn't tell him about the baby. So if that sounds compelling for you, pick up this book that Kyrgyz Reviews calls An Unforgettable Love Letter to the Wild. That is Open Throat by Henry Hoke. Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you, Ellie. 1 second, I will bring up our next book talker. And like Ellie said, I sat down to read that book and I was like, I'm just going to read a couple pages. And then I read the whole thing. So that's how you know how great it is. So up next is Anna. Anna's one of our librarians at our downtown branch and one of our current co-hosts of OPL's podcast, The Book Drop. Anna says she'll read almost anything if it's well written and interesting, but especially enjoys women-centered literary fiction, dystopias, food writing, and memoirs. If she could choose any pen name, it would be Eddie Cruz, and the title of her memoir would be Please Stop. And if she could jump into the world of any book, she'd choose Circe by Madeline Miller. Please welcome Anna.
Hello. Thank you so much. All right, let's get to the books right away. My first pick for you guys is called Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenya. We have this in ebook, downloadable audiobook, large print, and standard print formats. This is one of those dystopias that Erin mentioned that I like to read. It's violent, thought-provoking, really suspenseful, and for me, it felt like a little bit like too possible at times, which kept me reading, but also kept me a little like stressed out. So we have a near future America that gives incarcerated people the option to join something called CAPE. That's an acronym that stands for Criminal Action Penal Entertainment. So if you think about that phrase, penal entertainment, that'll tell you quite a bit about what this book is aiming to achieve. So participants in this program are put on like this gladiator style track that gives them the option to fight and ultimately kill their way to freedom. Only one person has achieved this so far, and our main character, Loretta Thurwar, is on track to be the second. She has just 2 fights left before she potentially earns her freedom. So she's famous not just because of her skills as a combatant, but also because part of the fighters' agreement with CAPE is that basically their lives become reality television. They're nearly constantly followed. Their lives are recorded live in real time for viewers across the country. And you can probably, as you might imagine, Americans are like hooked. They're obsessed with this show. So Americans not only watch them like fight and kill each other, but they also watch their interpersonal dynamics and relationships unfold, both romantic and platonic. I really couldn't put this one down. The characters are really vivid. The storyline is fast and intense. And I just felt like kind of like anything could happen at any point throughout this book. It's also a really scathing, beautiful, and honest feeling critique of the, quote, American prison system's unholy alliance of systemic racism, unchecked capitalism, and mass incarceration. To me, this felt like kind of like the great abolitionist novel. But regardless of your politics, it's going to give you a lot to chew on. And it's just a really engaging story with really well sketched out characters. If you're doing the reading challenge, this would work for a bunch of the topics. It's been mentioned on the book drop. It talks about social justice. It's a top shelf pick. There's a bit or a storyline about LGBTQIA plus families, and it also references tech and culture due to the like reality TV nature of the fighters. That's Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. My next rec is Lone Women by Victor Laval. We have this in downloadable audiobook, standard print, and book club bag formats. If you're doing a book club, this would be really fun. I think you could unpack our main character's decision making in a lot of ways, and as well as like some of the other characters in the book. And there's just a lot to kind of think about with this one. One of our book-oriented databases called Novelist puts us in the category of weird Westerns, and it certainly is. I would say it's a little darker than just weird. It's a moody horror story, also fast-paced. It's atmospheric and it's creepy. I felt this like pretty intense sense of foreboding, unease as soon as I like started reading the first page of this one. Our protagonist is a woman named Adelaide, and she's a Black woman in the American West in 1915. Her parents have just suffered mysterious and pretty dang gruesome deaths, and she is considering her options. There's a government program that offers free parcels of land to single Black women that are willing to move to Montana. Adelaide has been based in California. She now doesn't have a family. She doesn't have anything to lose. She wants a fresh start, so she decides to take advantage of this program. So she hits the road with her few belongings, and all of them are pretty typical, except for one. She has this giant, really heavy steamer trunk, and maybe you can sometimes hear noises coming out of it, and she's definitely always obsessive about keeping it locked and away from people. I thought the pacing was just right for a spooky story. I really liked how Laval really places readers in the setting, you know, the loneliness and sometimes harshness of the mountain prairie landscape, the weather, just all of those extremes, being alone in a remote environment full of strangers that don't look like you and aren't that welcoming. So, of course, as the story goes on, we learn more about Adelaide's own backstory, what the deal with that trunk is, and it's just a thoughtful and spooky look at family, belonging, survival in the American West from a perspective that you don't often see in Westerns. Lone Woman by Victor Laval. My next pick is Land of Milk and Honey by C. Pam Zhang. We have this in ebook and standard print formats. So this one is another kind of dystopia, but it's less, I don't know, it's intense, but in a more subtle way, I guess, than Chain Gang All Stars. So this is set on top of a mountain on the Italian-French border, and it's a near future in which food, as we currently know and experience it, is no longer available in a broad sense. The freshest and most like kind of highbrow ingredients are still available, but only to like the 1%. And our narrator in the story is a chef that's been hired to cook for this mysterious ultra rich man who likes to throw dinner parties, and it seems like he's probably up to something else aside from just offering people fresh strawberries and caviar. The writing is really melancholy, but also really lush. And I really liked how introspective and thoughtful the narrator was. If you're someone that's kind of obsessed with food, like I certainly am, I'm always thinking about what my next meal is going to be. I really appreciated how this book hits on all the ways that food can sustain you that aren't like just straight up survival. You know, memory, luxury, ideas of home, ideas of the exotic, comfort. Food is such a powerful force. And the ways in which that power is described in this book really resonated with me. It made me think a lot about our personal relationships with food and its cultural significance in different situations. And also makes you think the kind of obvious question to think about a dystopian food novel. What are we going to be eating at the end of the world? Reading this really made me want to savor ingredients in a way that I often forget to do. And it reminded me to appreciate the bounty of what I do have access to rather than what I lack. That might all sound really bleak, but I promise you this book is ultimately hopeful. The writing is really beautiful. And I just was really roped up in this world. There's a lot of romanticism in this book. It was really beautifully written. That is Land of Milk and Honey by C. Pam Zhang. My last rec for you guys is I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. And we have this in standard print format. I felt like reading this book was like being inside the head of that one friend you might have who's always making bad decisions. It's compelling, it's candid, it was sometimes frustrating, and it was always entertaining. It's a great read for anyone who also enjoyed Raven Leilani's book, Luster. It's presented in journalistic entries, and it's the story of a London woman who is having an affair with a married man, and it's about her attempts to navigate that relationship and their power struggles throughout the book. She's not his only mistress, and he's unquestionably terrible to her, but she can't seem to like break it off. She just keeps going back, even though she knows it's not good for her. She knows it's unhealthy. She knows it's unsustainable, and she knows that she's not acting in her own best interests. And if you're ever a person who's ever made a bad decision in your life, which I'm sure none of us are, you'll be able to relate to that feeling. And I also like that this book had a lot to say about power, class, race, and art. So a lot of topics are explored through this one core relationship in the book. This book is also super funny. It's short, but she packs so much. It's a really alive book. I felt like it just a really visceral writing. One of her primary competitors for this man's attention is a social media influencer. And our protagonist becomes obsessed with, the perfect veneer of this influencer life. She treats her Instagram page like a car accident. She's like repulsed, but can't look away. And she also begins to cross some lines in real life as well. But the way that she describes influencer culture, I found especially entertaining, and they're brutal and hilarious. And each section of the book, too, is also titled with something that's pretty cheeky. Some examples of this are, I might look innocent, but I screenshot a lot. Or I didn't miss the red flags. I looked at them and thought, damn, that's sexy. So if you're into obsession, self-destruction, and spiky humor, this is a great book for you to read. I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. Thank you guys for the time.
Thank you, Anna. One sec. So up next is Rose. Rose is a library specialist at our Willa Cather branch who loves reading history, biographies, and classic sci-fi. When asked if there was ever a book that she claimed to have read but hasn't, she said A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, because she wanted to present as someone who understands quantum physics. If she could pick any pen name, it would be Nora Barnacle. And Rose once won second place in the ladies' frying pan toss at the Hamilton County Fair, and she swears she's not making that up.
I am not.
Please welcome Rose.
Hello. I work at the Willa Cather branch. I have 5 books that I loved that I'm eager to share with you. I'm going to start with a book called Starter Villain by John Scalzi. Charlie Fitzer is a failed business writer. One morning, while eating breakfast with his cat, Hera, he hears on the news that his Uncle Jake, a reclusive billionaire who made his pile in parking structures, has died. Charlie's had no contact with his uncle since he was 5, and so he's surprised when a mysterious woman shows up who was Uncle Jake's right hand and tells him that his dying wish was that Charlie would host his funeral. Charlie agrees, and to his amazement, the only mourners who show up look like assassins, thugs, and bad guys, which is what they are. And they're only there to make sure that Uncle Jake is really dead. Then things really start to happen. Someone tries to kill Charlie by blowing up his house. He discovers that his cat, Hera, is a sentient, genetically enhanced cat who is able to communicate with humans using a special computer, and that she also stood high in his uncle's councils. The cats are actually in charge. Soon, Charlie's forced to flee the city, and the truth is revealed. His Uncle Jake was not simply a reclusive billionaire. He was a supervillain, complete with a volcano lair, a powerful member of an international cartel of supervillains just like him, who control everything, like Dr. No or Goldfinger, but without the charm. As his uncle's heir, Charlie himself is now a member of this highly secretive, murderously competitive group. He's a starter villain. He's summoned to a secret meeting of the group so that they can look him over and get his measure. But can Charlie hack it? Is he cut out for it? Does he have the moxie, the brains, the stamina, the ruthlessness to cut the mustard as a supervillain? You'll have to read the book and find out. At only 265 pages, this is a fast, hugely enjoyable read. The action never flags, and I laughed my way through it. I hope there's a sequel in the works. I also recommend Scalzi's other books, Agent to the Stars, Red Shirts, and Miniatures, a collection of short stories. Starter Villain by John Scalzi is available in a print book, in large print, and as an ebook. My next book is a change of pace. It's Northwoods by Daniel Mason. Readers who love The Overstory by Richard Powers may find themselves drawn into Northwoods, a cabin in the Northwoods of New England, built over 300 years ago by a young couple who fled their Puritan community. Over the centuries, it's retained the memories, the spirits, the dreams, an imprint of every soul who's ever sought shelter in it. A soldier, a painter, a pair of sisters, a panther, an insect, and more. Every single one leaves something. This group of interconnected stories is told with great skill by this very gifted writer, and it ponders the question, what lasts and what doesn't? Who remembers us? What do we leave behind when we are gone? Is it possible that a connection is made between us and the places we inhabit, and our fleeting presence affects the ones who lie in that place afterwards? The sense of place is so beautifully evoked that you can smell the earth and see the leaves in the breeze and feel that fresh, cold wind on your face. Northwoods by Daniel Mason is available from the library in regular print, large print, and as an ebook. Moving on to a completely different part of the country and a different landscape, Where Coyotes Howl by Sandra Dallas. In 1916, Ellen Webster leaves her Iowa home to take up a job as a teacher in a one-room schoolhouse on the dry high plains of Wyoming. She meets a cowboy named Charlie, and they marry and begin a life together in this unforgiving place. Electricity and automobiles have reached other parts of America, but they have not yet arrived in rural Wyoming. The author vividly brings us Ellen and her life at a time and place of harsh beauty, unforgiving toil, and the happiness that can be found even in the bleakest of places. I liked Ellen and her wholehearted devotion to her husband and to the life they chose. Just as important to Ellen as her husband are the friends that she makes in Wyoming, women who also left everything behind to make new lives in the West. The supporting cast of women help bring this story to life. They are the wives of neighboring ranchers and their daughters, girls from the local bordello, and others. They are all a part of Ellen's story. Sandra Dallas has been telling stories about women like Ellen for almost 40 years. I highly recommend her previous books, The Diary of Maddie Spencer, Prayers for Sale, and Little Souls. Where Coyotes Howl is available as a print book, in large print, as an ebook, a downloadable audiobook, and as a book club kit. The bonds of women's friendship is a theme of my next book, Farewell, My Orange by Iwaki Kei, translated from the Japanese by Meredith McKinney. If you enjoyed Pachinko or America is Not the Heart, I'd like to recommend this story. Two women from vastly different cultures and backgrounds meet in an ESL class in a small college town in Western Australia. Salima from Nigeria, who fled conflict and bloodshed, whose husband has abandoned her and her two sons, and Sayuri from Japan, a writer and new mother whose husband is studying at the university. We hear their stories in alternating chapters. Salima has found work as a meat packer for a supermarket, but she wants to make something more of herself in this new place. Her long-gone husband had thought all women were stupid and that education was wasted on women, and Salima's two sons have also soaked up that attitude, so she had never before tried to educate herself. She loves the low color orange in the sunrise every morning. It seemed to almost drip, fresh and sweet, to comfort her. Meanwhile, Sayuri, alone with the baby all day, feels unmoored from the person she was before. So they meet in class and become friends. And when a devastating blow strikes one of them, the devotion that connects them transcends any kind of cultural barrier. Some experiences are universal to all women. This is Iwaki Kei's first novel, and it won both of Japan's top literary prizes the year it was published. She writes straightforward, clear, beautiful prose, and though it's a short book, only 106 pages, it is not something that will disappear from your mind within a day of reading. If you are doing the library's reading challenge, this book fulfills the requirement to read a book with a color in the title. Farewell, My Orange is available from us as a print book and as an ebook. My last book, little change of mood, Ukulele of Death by E.J. Copperman. The Omaha Public Library owns only 3 books with the word ukulele in the title. Ukulele for Dummies, Jumpin' Jim's Ukulele Favorites, and The Ukulele of Death, tonight's book. How could I resist a title like that? Ukulele of Death is a rather uncanny take on a classic noir mystery with elements of cozy and a whiff of classic horror thrown in for good measure. Our detectives are a brother and sister named Fran and Ken Stein, and their specialty is helping adopted people find their birth parents. One day, a woman hires them to find her real father, and the only clue she can offer is that he once owned a rare and extremely valuable ukulele, a Gibson poinsettia. Part of the quirky fun as the story unfolds is finding out that Fran and Ken are not quite what they seem to be. They too have questions about their own past. As they track down the ukulele and the bodies pile up, Fran and Ken uncover their own backstory. This is a fun, cleverly plotted tale. There's no gore and very little real horror. It's a winner and the first in a series. Available from the Omaha Public Library as a print book, ebook, and an audiobook. Thank you for listening and attending our book bash this evening, and we'll see you at the library.
Thank you, Rose. Okay, up next is Summer. Give me one sec. Summer is currently a specialist at our Benson branch, where she spends her reading time enjoying magical realism, cozy fantasies, cozy mysteries, romance, and graphic novels. Despite the 2005 Pride and Prejudice movie being a critical part of her personality, she says she's never actually read the book and considers this a personal failure. If she could pick a pen name, it would be Marisol de Luna, and the title of her memoir would be Tempting Fate, Essays from a Chronically Late Woman. And despite being named Summer, her favorite season is spring. Please welcome Summer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Summer, and I am really excited to share with you some incredible titles that I adore. So people always say that your wedding day is the happiest day of your life. But honestly, people should try solving murders more often. This quote is from Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jesse Q. Satanto, a hilarious, heartwarming, cozy mystery. It's available in book, ebook, and downloadable audiobook formats for checkout. For those who love a good senior sleuth novel or adore a plot about found family, this book is for you. It stars 60-year-old strong-willed widow Vera Wong, who discovers a body with a flash drive in its hand in her tea shop in San Francisco's Chinatown. Vera contacts the police, but confident she can do a better job at pinpointing the murderer, she snatches the flash drive before their arrival. The authorities identify the victim as 29-year-old Marshall Chen and determine he died from an allergy attack. But convinced the death was no accident, Vera is thrilled to delve into detective work when a handful of people who knew Marshall come into her shop looking for information. Seeing them as potential suspects, Vera lures them in with her distinctive teas and cooking, and developing genuine friendships with each one, but also able to easily sniff out their lies. The mystery is incredibly intriguing, but what I loved about this book is the unexpected familial bond that is created among these strangers. And watching Vera's personal growth as she weaves herself into their lives is truly beautiful. I even teared up a couple times. But by getting to know these people, Vera's life is opened and brightened. And by taking these strangers into her life and heart, and they are also in turn positively changed as she kindly orders them around. And the vivid sensory descriptions of the custom teas Vera concocts and the elaborate feast she prepares heighten the feel-good appeal and will leave your mouth watering. Truly, this book is literary comfort food in the guise of a quirky whodunit with plenty of twists to keep readers guessing. I would highly recommend Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers as a great choice for the reading challenge topic of reading a book about or featuring a refugee or immigrant. All right. Next up, I want to share with you what could be a whimsical option for a reading challenge, a book about or featuring LGBTQIA+ families. The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich by Dale Munoz is a gorgeous young adult graphic novel and a lighthearted romp through a realm of intentionally cheesy puns. This title is available in book and ebook formats. But here we find Camembert, a young woman dressing as a man to inherit her father's title, who moves to the capital of Fondue for a quiet life with her maid Feta. Having to avoid public gatherings to mitigate potential scrutiny, Cam chafes against her newly restrictive life and impulsively decides to test her charade on the grandest stage available, a ball hosted by Crown Princess Brie. There, Cam meets and immediately falls head over heels in love with the outspoken princess. But as the two embark on a coy courtship, Cam's ruse becomes harder to maintain. Despite having so many cheese-related names, the narrative doesn't depend on puns. I feel like the story does a really amazing job of relatably exploring questions of identity and honesty and a journey to self-acceptance. And the artwork in this graphic novel is gorgeous. The flowing line work and soft palette really bring a dreamy quality to the story. And there's also a touch of manga influences that really infuse the characters with anger and sadness, so they're just radiating energy. This charming and amusing graphic novel is great for folks who enjoy the Heartstopper series and are looking for a super cute queer love story. So if you're seeking a delightfully tender young romance, or you enjoy the love in disguise trope, make sure you pick up The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich. Alrighty. So for folks who are looking for a silly romance, I highly recommend you check out The Secret Service of Tea and Treason by India Holton. If you mix Julia Quinn, Stardust, and Get Smart, the result is a delightfully bonkers fantasy Victorian romance. This is the third installment in the series, but it does serve as like a standalone novel, and it's available as a book, ebook, and downloadable audiobook. So, when the Agency of Undercover Note Takers, or ANT, learns that a pirate is plotting to assassinate Queen Victoria, rival agents Alice Dearlove and Daniel Bixby must go undercover as a married couple to infiltrate the pirates' house party and stop the scheme. The pair are surprised to find they have much in common, including their love for literary allusions and their level-headed handling of curveballs lobbed at them by their salacious yet endearing pirate acquaintances. But the longer they pretend to be in love, the more they actually start to fall for each other. But Ant frowns on agents courting. But what I really loved about this book is that Holton pairs dry wit with ludicrous situations that involve spies, pirates, misquoted literary references, assassination attempts, and the overwhelming urge to clean everything. You literally never know what's going to happen next. For example, I did not expect a conga line and a tiger to show up in the same scene. This is a great choice for those who love a good rivals to lovers trope, as it is very reminiscent of the film Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and the combat scenes often remind you of Man from U.N.C.L.E. And all of the ridiculous and misappropriated allusions in this book will be sure to have Shakespeare and Jane Austen fans laughing and rolling their eyes. If you're looking for a whimsical romance and dryly delivered fantastical adventure with characters that leap off the page, make sure to check out The Secret Service of Tea and Treason. For those who are searching for a fairy tale that will make their inner child rejoice, I highly recommend picking up The Ogress and the Orphans by Kelly Barnhill. This title is available in book, ebook, and downloadable audiobook formats. This is a sweet and clever middle grade fantasy book about what happens to a community when kindness and empathy are replaced with distrust and division. It asks us, what does it mean to be a neighbor? The story is about an ogress, but maybe she's not who you think she is. The story is about a dragon, and maybe he's exactly who you think he is. The story is also about a town fallen on hard times where trust and kindness are steadily withering away, and the town's livelihood is dying a slow death. The story is also about a group of orphans who are able to look at the world with the clear-eyed gaze that only the most honest children can use. When one of the orphans goes missing, all eyes turn on our ogress, but little does the town know that our friend secretly bestows gifts to each town person in the dead of night. When the adults won't listen to the children, they must find another way to help their generous neighbor and repair their broken community. What I found really compelling about this book is that it really serves as a mirror looking back at us with a kinder and more hopeful light. It's the sort of fairy tale that you'd love to hear told around the coffee table on a lazy afternoon. The book is a slow burn, but it's filled with so much love and enchantment that you'll want to savor every drop. I think readers will be reminded of Roald Dahl's BFG, and with a thrilling cast of characters, The Ogress and the Orphans is as engaging to young readers as it is to adults who wish to feel the flame of resistance warm their hearts in an empowering burst of magical fire. All right. Lastly, I want to shine a light on an amazing book called For Brown Girls with Sharp Edges and Tender Hearts by Prisca Dorcas Mojica Rodriguez, a short memoir by an awesome Latina. It is available as a book and downloadable audiobook in a book club bag. For Brown Girls is a raw, impassioned, and accessible guide on how to dismantle the systematic oppressions that hold back women of color. It's beautifully written. The author brilliantly interweaves her personal story with research, history, and social commentary, with primers on volunteerism, colorism, imposter syndrome, toxic masculinity, and white fragility. And for those who are exhausted by our current sociopolitical climate, For Brown Girls provides inspiration by reinforcing the importance of challenging the systems of sexism, classism, and racism. And Rodriguez shows us that knowledge is the key to liberation and freedom for women of color to live the life that they want and not the one prescribed for them by men, family, or society. This book is something every woman of color should read. As a Latina, this book meant so much to me. It came to me at a time when I was in graduate school and I was just really dealing with severe imposter syndrome. And I just felt like I wasn't good enough and I wasn't smart enough. And I was just deeply enthralled by her words that I had felt my entire life, but could never voice, on what it means to be a Latin woman and the ways in which society continually forces us to make ourselves smaller. This book is perfect for fans of Ibram X. Kendi, Tarana Burke, and Brene Brown, who are looking for powerfully candid, thought-provoking stories that energize us to change our lives and the world around us. I will leave you with this quote: "Freedom is not a destination, it's a communal journey. May it heal you, may it lead you back to you." Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Summer. Okay, everybody, we have reached our halfway point. We're going to take a little intermission. Give me one sec. So a couple things before we let you go. Don't forget to fill out the prize drawing survey if you have not already. We are going to take 10 minutes. So from my clock, that is 7:52. Stay busy in the chat. Talk amongst yourselves. We would love to know what you're most excited about so far. Also want to give it up for Summer. This was her first book bash, and I think she hit it out of the park. So great job, Summer, and all of our first half book talkers. So we will see you all back here at 8:02. I can tell time. 8:02. 10 minutes, everybody. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. I'm going to share a couple things just while everyone is getting back into the event. Hope you guys got to take a little break. Last call to enter the prize drawing, so don't forget to do that. I'm going to draw the winners here shortly. If you're in the chat, you also might have noticed Amy dropped a link to our Omaha Reads nomination form. So if you are an avid OPL event attendee, Omaha Reads is a yearly event. It's like our big community book club where we invite the community to nominate and then vote on one book that they think all of Omaha should read and discuss. So usually during this time, we are doing a nomination period, and then we will have a short list where we vote for the winners in the next month or so. This year, we're changing up a little bit. We're going to open the nominations all year round. So we would love now, any day of the year, to know what books that you think we should be considering for Omaha Reads. So check out that link that Amy just dropped in the chat and share what books you think would be a great community discussion. Okay, we are ready to get into our second half. So up first, actually, let me take myself off the screen. Hang on. Okay. Michelle currently serving as a librarian at the W. Clark Swanson branch. You might recognize Michelle as one of the co-hosts of OPL's Book Drop podcast, where she shares her loves of memoirs, thrillers, romance, narrative nonfiction, and contemporary fiction. When asked if there's ever a book that she says she's read but hasn't, she said, "All the Emily Henry books." I just nod and say, "I know a lot," which I am devastated to hear, I must say, and she knows that. If you could choose a pen name, it would be Jessica Washington, and she'd title her memoir, well, F, a memoir. Please welcome Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I know this is virtual, but I still have a question for you all. Can you please raise your hand if you have a butt? Humans have butts, and we also have a complicated relationship with our butts, booties, and derrieres. Throughout history, there are points when butts have been idolized, envied, and despised. Quote, "Our feelings about our bodies are the legacy of people and stories from long ago." In Butts, a Backstory, reporter and essayist Heather Radke shares the historical and cultural context to why butts matter. From Sarah Bartman, a human I knew I was going to do this. Okay. Sarah Bartman, a human Calipigian who was unfortunately the epitome of racist colonial exploitation and dehumanization of Black people, to Bustles, to Sir Mix-a-Lot and Jennifer Lopez, to BBLs and twerking, we learn the commodification of butts, the appropriation of Blackness, and start to have an understanding of the societal obsession and social impact of butts. If you are looking for something entertaining and illuminating, this thoughtful investigation into why certain silhouettes hold so much meaning about ourselves and others might be for you. Butts is available in print, spoken compact disc, and downloadable audiobook. It would qualify for the mention on the book drop and read a book by or about or featuring a 20th century icon reading challenges. This is a story of Goes First, a Crow Native woman. In 1872, at 16 years old, she married a white fur trader named Abe Farewell and became known as Crow Mary. The beginning of their partnership is what you would expect of two people blending cultures and building a life together. As they travel on Abe's trade route in Montana and the Northern Plains, Crow Mary is able to make a friend at a trading post, which adds some light humor to an otherwise intense novel. Crow Mary witnesses the Cypress Hill Massacre, a horrendous event that involved American hunters and traders in a camp of a local tribe. From here, there are more events that will bring heartache and personal triumph. If, like me, you are sometimes wary of historical fiction, this will be the book to turn you on to it. It's action-packed and led by a wise, strong, and resilient woman. The author, Kathleen Grissom, worked with Crow Mary's great-granddaughter to share as much truth to the story as can be told. With themes of survival, resilience, patriarchy, and much more, this is an excellent book for discussion, and it is available as a book club kit and also in print, large print, ebook, and downloadable audiobook, and has been mentioned on the book drop. Okay, as you can see, this cover has some mushrooms on it, so let's go foraging together, and we're going to put Witch of Wild Things by Raquel Vasquez Gilliand together. We're going to first take a steamy romance novel, mix in some complicated relationships, a secret from the past, a mysterious death, and greedy business owners. We'll sprinkle in some botany and herbology, take a pinch of grief and a dash of magic. It's also kind of giving Mia Sosa meets braiding sweetgrass. In this captivating novel, we meet Sage Flores, a woman with unique connection to the natural world. With her ability to communicate with plants, Sage returns to her hometown of Cranberry, Virginia, haunted by the memory of her sister Sky's untimely death. But as she reacquaints herself with the familiar landscapes and faces of her past, she finds herself drawn into a partnership with Tennessee Reyes, her first love and the one who broke her heart. As Sage and Ten embark on a quest to discover heritage plants, the sparks between them reignite with a force that cannot be denied. Yet Sage's fear of being hurt again and the secrets she carries threaten to uproot their budding romance. Author Gilliand masterfully weaves together elements of magical realism, Mexican-American culture, and the preservation of nature, creating a rich tapestry that will immerse you in Sage's world. But this book is more than just a love story. It's a testament to the power of family bonds and the resilience of the human spirit. With themes of redemption, forgiveness, and the enduring strengths of sisterhood, Witch of Wild Things will tug at your heartstrings and leave you breathless until the very last page. Witch of Wild Things is available in print, large print, ebook, and downloadable audiobook. It's been mentioned on the book drop and is a book featuring spirituality. For too long, fairy tales have perpetuated the notion that only the conventionally beautiful can find happiness and fulfillment. But what about those who don't fit the mold? What about the characters who are mocked and marginalized because of their differences? In Disfigured, on Fairy Tales, Disability, and Making Space by Amanda Leduc, we are invited to challenge the ableism entrenched in the tales we grew up with and discover new narratives that celebrate the magic of all bodies. Leduc fearlessly delves deep into the roots of fairy tales from the Brothers Grimm to modern interpretations by Disney and Marvel. Through her insightful analysis, Leduc reveals how these stories have shaped our perceptions of disability and perpetuated harmful stereotypes. Disfigured is more than just a critique of fairy tales. It's a call to action for greater awareness and acceptance of difference. Leduc reminds us that everyone deserves to see themselves reflected in the stories that shape our world, and the true magic lies in embracing our unique abilities. and Identities. If you love nonfiction that is charged with insight and are ready to challenge the status quo, then Disfigured is the book for you. It's available in print and downloadable audiobook, and it would meet the following reading challenges: a book about or featuring social justice, mythology, or a book about or featuring a person with a disability. And finally, have you ever asked yourself, do I really know the person checking out my books or the person sitting at the reference desk? For fans of psychological suspense and unreliable narrators, I give you How Can I Help You by Laura Sims. Patricia is a recent graduate and aspiring novelist, finds a position at a reference library as a reference librarian at a small town public library. Margot is a middle-aged woman working in the library. She's a bit intimidating, but congenial and charming nonetheless. Seemingly normal, no one knows about Margot's past as a nurse with a trail of premature deaths in her wake. When a patron is found dead in the bathroom, something is awakened in Margot, and Patricia notices. Intrigued and determined to uncover the truth, Patricia embarks on a journey that will lead her down a dangerous path of discovery. As she delves deeper into Margot's past, she finds herself drawn into a web of deceit and deception that threatens to consume her. Told from both women's perspectives, we see how far each of them will go to justify their obsessions. With its riveting plot twists, captivating characters, and dark humor, How Can I Help You will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very last page. How Can I Help You is perfect for a group discussion and is available in a book club kit. It's also available in print, ebook, and downloadable audiobook formats. So be sure also to look for this title on the upcoming 2023 top shelf. Thank you all.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, up next is Nicole. Nicole is currently a specialist at our downtown branch, where she spends her reading time enjoying sweet and spicy romances, classics, and more recently, fantasy. When asked what book she'd want to have with her if she was marooned on an island, she said Jane Austen Omnibus, and if that's cheating, she doesn't care. When it comes to picking a pen name, Nicole put her faith in an online generator and came up with Indigo Bennett, which I think is actually pretty great. And outside the library, Nicole collects tarot decks and is working on her skills as an amateur tarot reader.
Thanks, Erin. I am always so excited to participate in Book Bash, and I'm even more excited this year because I'm pairing each book with a Taylor Swift song. Starting off strong with a romance. So I don't know about y'all, but my social media feeds are filled with hockey romances, and I'm not mad about it at all. Mile High by Liz Tomford is easily one of my favorites. Stevie is one of the new flight attendants for the Chicago Raptors. Evan Sanders is a player for the Raptors, and his arrogance and diva attitude get him in trouble pretty much immediately with Stevie. On their first flight of the season, she's about to ask him if he's ready for the safety briefing, but he interrupts her, wrong, immediately, saying, "Yes, I'm Evan Sanders. No, you cannot have an autograph." The audacity of this man. Taylor's song, I Knew You Were Trouble, isn't about Harry Styles. It's about Evan Sanders. It's a good thing Stevie is a Spitfire because she refuses to put up with him and rightfully puts him in his place. Their teasing quickly becomes flirting, and the tension between them builds until it finally breaks when they're on the road. They have to keep their relationship a secret because Stevie could get fired for fraternizing with a player. All's well until Xander's infamous reputation catches up to him, and Stevie's identity is outed and plastered all over social media, making them question if their relationship is strong enough to handle outside pressure. To cover the tropes and buzzwords, Mile High is a kind of enemies to lovers hockey romance with plenty of steamy scenes. It's also deeply emotional and covers heavy topics like mental health, family drama, and the wavering relationship between our bodies and our self-esteem. It's the first book in a series, and it's one I've already returned to a couple of times. Next up is a book that my sister actually recommended to me called Lassoing the Sun by Mark Woods. Mark grew up in an outdoorsy family, spending summers exploring national parks. When he turned 50, he had a midlife crisis, and instead of buying a fancy sports car, he planned vacations to national parks to distract himself. He visits a different national park each month, starting in Maine at Acadia, to see the first sunrise of the year atop Cadillac Mountain. Been there before, gorgeous, highly recommend. He visits big name parks like the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, and some lesser known parks like Gateway National Recreation Area in New York City and the Dry Tortugas in Key West, Florida. In the beginning of February, he finds out his mom, Nancy, has bile duct cancer, and doctors think she only has a few months left. At the end of June, she passes away at home, surrounded by her family. What started as a fun, year-long escapist travelogue is now an emotional memoir about grief and finding peace during difficult times. For Mark, that means spending time in the great outdoors. Each chapter focuses on a different park. A major conversation throughout the book is our relationship with nature. Mark talks to park rangers about park history, the challenges they're currently facing, and how visitors can preserve and protect the land. At each stop, he's reminded that if we take care of the parks and nature, they will take care of us. He's constantly reminded of his mom and imbues his mindset with her spirit and love for the outdoors. One thing she always did that made him really uncomfortable was sit in silence. She just sat and listened and did absolutely nothing. Simply enjoy where you are and don't rush to the next thing. I'd recommend he listen to The Best Day to commemorate his mom. Lassoing the Sun is a call to action, an ode to Mark's mom, and a reminder to appreciate the natural beauty around us. Next up, it's time to get really sad, and we're going to talk about a classic. We're going to talk about The Bell Jar. There is something really magical about novels written by poets. You can count on the writing to be absolutely stunning because they're so intentional about every single word they choose, every single punctuation. There's a reason for it. And The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath is definitely something special. The Bell Jar is set in the 1950s and follows Esther Greenwood, a college student who's contemplating her future, what she wants from life, and what society tells her is acceptable for a woman to accomplish. She wants to be a poet, but very few people take her seriously, telling her this dream to be a writer is just a silly hobby, and she will forget about it once she's married and has kids. Oh no, Skippy can't talk anymore. But Esther doesn't want to get married, and when she's talking to her boyfriend about it, she thinks, quote, "The trouble was, I hated serving men. I hated the idea of serving men in any way," end quote. And that's what most marriages in the 50s were like. So Esther interns at a magazine in New York City over the summer, and she starts to feel lost and despondent, and those feelings only get worse. When she goes home to Boston and finds out she's rejected from a writing class she was really looking forward to, she spirals into a deep depression and attempts suicide several times. Once Esther gets the help she needs, she feels re-energized and inspired. So yeah, it's a really, really sad book, but it ends on a hopeful note. Esther would probably play This Is Me Trying and The Lakes on repeat. This novel is semi-autobiographical, and there are more similarities to Sylvia's life than not. It's devastating and thoughtful, and her dry humor made me laugh several times, which helped offset the crying that also happened. Plath harshly critiques 1950s social and gender politics, which is still hugely relevant today, which is honestly a bit scary. Also, there's a metaphor about a fig tree that I keep thinking about. I just can't stop thinking about it. Everyone should read it, especially people in their 20s, aka me. I feel a certain kinship with Esther and Sylvia, and this book helped me during a very difficult time. The Bell Jar is available as a book club bag, and thank goodness for that, because it needs to be discussed and unpacked. Okay, onward to Half Your Books, another romance. I am not a big historical romance reader, but I was already expecting to love A Lady's Guide to Scandal by Sophie Irwin because it has all the hallmarks of a successful romance for me. Jane Austen, Bridgerton Regency vibes, strong women, friendship, and a heck of a lot of witty banter. When Miss Eliza Balfour was 17, she married the Earl of Somerset, a man she didn't love and is 25 years older than her, because it's what her parents wanted her to do, because it directly benefited them. She instead wanted to marry Oliver, the Earl's nephew. 10 years later, her husband dies unexpectedly. When the family gets together to read the will, everyone is shocked to learn Eliza's late husband left all of his estates to her, making her an extremely rich widow, and enemy number one to her in-laws. There's a sneaky little morality clause, though, basically saying Eliza has to behave properly like a good young lady and, quote, bring no dishonor to the Somerset name, end quote. With her newfound freedom and wealth, she decides to escape to Bath with her cousin. In Bath, she gets back into painting, attends concerts and balls, and makes new friends. She's finally doing what she wants, and she's happy for the first time in a really long time. Unfortunately, her friends Lord Melville and his sister are deemed unsavory to her in-laws, breaking the morality clause. She's faced with a tough choice. She could marry Oliver, the new Earl, and keep her name and money, or she can pursue life as an artist, which is completely new and a huge unknown. I'd pair this book with Getaway Car or Carriage, if we're sticking to the Regency theme, and Bejeweled. I must admit, I'm a die-hard Friends to Lovers fan, and I went in with grand assumptions about how the story would go and who our heroine would end up with, and I was happily surprised as to who I was rooting for in the end. Now for my last book of the night. I think The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is my Roman Empire. The first time I read it was in 2019. The second time I read it was a month ago in preparation for Book Bash. And in the 4-ish years in between, I've thought about the last few sentences of this book on a weekly basis, and I'm not exaggerating. The story jumps between characters and timelines. The central heroine is Evelyn Hugo, a movie star known for her many marriages and stunning good looks. She's a mix of Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, and Rita Hayworth. The other heroine is Monique Grant, a journalist for a magazine and the writer Evelyn handpicks to write her biography. A small part of the book follows Monique as she goes through a divorce, career changes, her experience with Evelyn, and the aftermath of it. The majority of the story is Evelyn's biography. She talks us through her life before Hollywood, the highs and lows of her career, all of her relationships, and there's a lot of them. And she's not sparing any niceties. There are even clippings of articles from the 50s and 60s about Evelyn from a gossip magazine. It's a celebrity tell-all that I'm actually interested in. Like, these people feel real. I want to Google them, but they're not real. To be honest with you, Evelyn is not a super likable character, but she commands my respect. She does some pretty terrible things to get what she wants, but she's honest and unashamed about it. She puts herself and the people she loves first, always. However, I keep thinking about how if Evelyn was a man, she'd be the man. Yes, another Taylor Swift song. Mastermind is another song that fits Evelyn perfectly. And honestly, like all of Reputation is Evelyn. That is Evelyn's vibe. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo fulfills the reading challenge prompt of a book about or featuring LGBTQIA+ families. I've read the book and listened to the audiobook. Both are great options, and I'm hoping that my book club downtown is going to read it in the next few months. That's all I have for you tonight. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you, Nicole. Also, apologies. I got so excited about Taylor Swift references, I forgot to mute myself and giggled. So 1 second, I will bring up our next book talker. So up next is Jake. You'll currently find Jake serving as a librarian at our Charles B. Washington branch. Jake loves reading fantasy, science fiction, nonfiction about technology, and graphic novels. If he could choose any pen name, it would be Pamplemousse LaCroix, and the title of his memoir would be Should Have Been a Wizard. If he could bring any book with him to a deserted island, it would be The Lord of the Rings as a single volume by J.R.R. Tolkien. Please welcome Jake.
Hey, everybody. Tonight, my first title I'm going to talk about is How Music Works by David Byrne. If you don't know who David Byrne is, he's the co-founder of the band The Talking Heads. If you've never listened to their music, you should. It's real good. I actually chose this book predominantly because A24 has just recently released a 4K version, and I remember this that they had this concert film. I apologize. They released the 4K version of the concert film "Stop Making Sense" by the Talking Heads. But this book, which fulfills a 2024 reading challenge about books about or featuring technology and culture. Unfortunately, it's only available in a print option through OPL, but it's a great read. It's part biography and then kind of part history. Even though David Byrne says this is not a biography of his career, it absolutely is. I don't know why he ever makes that point, but he uses his career as a way to kind of instruct you in his philosophy surrounding music. He doesn't always succeed with this, but a lot of times there's really informative and entertaining information in there. I think one of his opinions, it makes so much sense to me as someone who used to be a music or studied music in college. His concept of that context is what really drives the creation of the music, and oftentimes the location in which it is going to be performed actually kind of brings you along as far as how that music is going to sound, the sorts of themes that will appear there. It's something that you don't think of as a composer. The context matters, and that context absolutely changes how the music is going to be formed. And so really society is what kind of informs music. He also is really against the gatekeeping that's in music, and he's really into amateurs and exploring. So all these things really made a lot of sense to me, and I really kind of mirrored those concepts in my own personal life. If you're looking for a book that's less philosophy and kind of more about like how music affects us, Oliver Sacks' book Musicophilia, which we also have in the collection as a print book, speaks more about how music affects our brains, because that's kind of his deal. But I would recommend to read this book and then watch the concert film, because I learned and understood so much more about what David Byrne was trying to get across, and that concert film is real good. That Stop Making Sense, and you got to turn on those subtitles. So it really helps. My next title is the Thursday Murder Club, and which I imagine this is a very popular title. We have it available in a wide swath of formats, but predominantly it is available as a book club bag. But we have it as a print, large print, book club bag, preloaded audiobook on Playaway, ebook, and downloadable audiobook. Practically every format we have in the system. This is a mystery that has a lot of characters to it. It takes place in a British retirement community, and 4 friends that meet every Thursday afternoon come together to try to solve a cold case murder. It's not what I would do with my free time, but there's a lot of people that love that true crime. So a murder actually takes place in that retirement community, and the Thursday Murder Club, they jump right into action, and they use their skills and the connections they've made over their lives to try to solve this murder. One of the things that I really love about this book is it gives you a glimpse of kind of life as an older adult, and the sequences of your daily events, kind of the pulse of your life, daily routines, your social life. This book gives you a little window into that. It kind of lulls you as well. Everyone is so kind, very British, so very, very helpful in many ways. But there's also moments of really deep sadness and chords of grief and loss that resonated even with myself. So I mean, it's an interesting title. The Thursday Murder Club, hopefully not solving any murders anytime soon. My next title is Shareware Heroes, The Renegades Who Redefined Gaming at the Dawn of the Internet by Richard Moss. This fulfills the same reading challenge about technology and culture, but I thought this one was too good to pass up. I loved Shareware as a teenager. It was really the only way I was ever going to get to play Doom and Commander Keen and Castle Wolfenstein, the early computer games in the 90s. But this book actually goes all the way back into the 70s and 80s, and it kind of touches on the history of that period where folks didn't really consider that software costs money and is is worthy of being paid for. That didn't really happen until like kind of around the Microsoft hit the market, and then they really started charging for software. So people try, for the most part, that created this barrier for a lot of folks. And shareware was one way to kind of get through that barrier by offering a product that you could try out, and then either on your honor or calling them or sending a payment, you could get more content from them, get more games or more levels, something beyond the demo. And by doing that, they started to carve out a niche for themselves. So this is kind of half history of computing and half business study. It features a lot of small stories from even amateur computer programmers that were really just trying to make an extra buck. Kind of feels a little bit like a precursor to the gig economy for programmers. Some interesting things is there are huge companies that came out of utilizing shareware. You may have heard of id Software. They were the makers of Doom and Castle Wolfenstein. Those are very popular titles. Apogee Software, which then became 3D Realms, and they make Duke Nukem. And probably the best known, Epic Games. Those are the people that make Fortnite. So they got their start doing shareware. I should note as well that this author's website for this book is awesome. If you want a little blast to the past of what the internet used to look like, go to sharewareheroes.com. So it's a blue screen with a lot of text, and it just makes me feel right at home to my teenage self. And my last title for this evening is probably one of my favorite book of the year, which was Sir Hereward and Mr. Fitz, Stories of the Witch Knight and the Puppet Sorcerer by Garth Nix. This came out in 2023, so it's pretty new. And it's noted as being kind of within that traditional sword and sorcery, but I really feel like Garth Nix touches on the things that make kind of fantasy really engaging and personable. But this is a collection of 9 short stories that feature the 2 characters, Sir Hereward and Mr. Fitz, as they kind of travel through a fantasy world, going from town to town, often bickering amongst themselves as they're trying to find work. Sir Hereward is a bit of a hopeless romantic. He often gets himself into more trouble than he can handle. He relies on his skills with a sword and musket and cannon, because there's a little bit of gunpowder in this world. Just tries to do his best. Mr. Fitz is a cold, logical, magical, functionally immortal talking puppet who wields magic that is as mysterious as it is powerful. I don't want to say any more because Mr. Fitz's magic is terrifying and captivating. I think it's one of the most original ideas I've read in a really long time. They both act as kind of bounty hunters, as they're looking for malignant extraplanar beings that come from another universe that they refer to as godlets. So if you've ever seen the show Supernatural, who the 2 brothers who travel around and fight bad guys, supernatural bad guys, there's a little flavor in there. There's a little drop, but according to the author, a lot of this was influenced by a series of books by Fritz Lieber called Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, which incidentally we also just recently ordered the graphic novel adaptation of for this collection. But Sir Hereward and Mr. Fitz is such a fun read. There's a lot of repeated phrases in there, almost like it's a little catchphrase here and there within each story. But I should mention, it is available as a print book and as an audiobook on CD, which I'm looking forward to listening to that audiobook. But that's it, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jake. Okay, we are down to our last book talker of the evening. Closing out the night for us is our collection development librarian, Angela. In her reading, Angela is drawn to memoirs, thrillers, horror, literary nonfiction, history, and almost every kind of graphic novel. If she could choose one book to be marooned on a desert island with, it would be The Never-Ending Story, obviously. Her chosen pen name would be Luna Estrella Mundo, and if she wrote a memoir, it would be titled, I Couldn't Sleep, So I Made Dreams of My Life. In a past life, Angela was a flamenco dancer at Renaissance festivals. Please welcome Angela.
Hello, everybody. I am here with Skippy John to close out the night. We're having a great time, and so I'm so happy to be talking to you about my next 5 books. They're amazing. I can't wait for you to read them and tell me what you think. So, starting off is The Great Escape. And this book is just incredible. A true story of forced labor and immigrant dreams in America by Saket Soni. Saket Soni is a labor organizer and also a former theater major who is completely fascinated by storytelling. So, of course, he's the best person to tell this story that he just kind of stumbled upon. So one day he received a phone call on his cell phone, and he picked it up and somebody was screaming at him in Hindi. And he had no idea who this was or what they were talking about. And they said, "This is not possible. Only you can fix this. You need to do this. This isn't correct." So after doing some research, he found out that there was a group of over 500 men who were in a labor camp who had been conned into coming to the United States. After Hurricane Katrina came through and took down oil rigs all over the place, this sort of specialized labor, which is very expensive, was needed. And because there is a community in India who did this overseas, they were told that they could come here and get a green card within 6 months. That's illegal and not true. They were also forced to pay fees to the recruiter, which is also very much illegal. Once they got here, they found these huge warehouses full of all these beds with no walls, nothing to keep them from each other, and they had these rotating shifts, so nobody could sleep because everybody was coming in and out of the time, all the time. The food was rotting, there was terrible plumbing, they were exposed to the elements, everything was so cold, and they couldn't get anyone to talk to them about what was going on and about this con. And someone got Saket Soni's phone number, and he came down and he convinced them that in order to expose a story, they were going to go out and walk to Washington, D.C. as a form of protest. This book is incredibly infuriating, but it is also amazing. There's so much skill in how it's told, and it's a story that we need to know about. These are things that are so easy to get lost, and it's a part of what's happening in our country. It's just such a great, great story. So I was enthralled. I gave it 5 stars, and I think Rebecca Sonnet said it perfectly, which is it's paced like a thriller and written like a poem. Naomi Klein says it's a miracle, told with ridiculous skill of Saket Soni's gigantic heart pounding audibly on every page. This book meets the reading challenge of reading a book about or featuring a refugee or immigrant, or a book or about featuring social justice. It is available as a physical book, a downloadable audiobook, or a book club bag. There's a lot to talk about with your book club. All right, so then I wanted something maybe a little lighter, but there's some darkness here too. So congratulations, The Best Is Over by Eric R. Thomas is such a fun book because he's so good at making jokes out of the harshness of life, being able to observe difficult things that happen and make you feel not so dark about them. There are dark undertones, but after reading his last collection of essays, I had to pick this one up. So you know how sometimes a book makes you feel like you're on the phone with a friend and they are the best storyteller and they're telling you everything that's happening, like they're gossiping it to you, but with the best sense of humor and very well written. That is this book. I really recommend the audiobook because his voice just sells all of his stories. And he shines a shimmering light of joy, even in moments where he's clearly suffering. In this book, he has to go back home, where he thought he would never return, even to his funeral. And he decides to make the best of it, but strange things start happening. The book starts with his obsession with baking cupcakes that goes way too far. And then he gets confused for someone else at his high school reunion, and even his badge has the wrong name on it. So it's like a very big metaphor for not being able to find himself. This book also talks about the COVID era, and it's rare to find a book like this that can capture something that's so deep as looking for oneself and shine a light on what those observations mean. This was impactful and profound while also being funny, but all I can say is there's a plague of gay frogs. So you have to read it to find out what that's about. This book meets the reading challenge of reading a book about LGBTQIA+ families, and it is available as a physical book or a downloadable audiobook. Okay. My next one is a memoir. Okay, don't worry, I will get to a fiction book, but I love nonfiction, I love memoirs, and Horse Barbie was such an impactful read for me. So I was very excited to read this book by Gina Rosero. It tells a story of this incredible woman who came to the United States, and she reinvented herself as a very successful, beautiful model who was becoming more and more famous, but then was realizing that she had to reveal her secret because she couldn't live her most authentic life. See, back in the Philippines, she was also famous, and she was known as a trans woman because she was one of the biggest winners in the trans pageants that are so famous in the Philippines. So she was worried that it was going to mess with her ability to form a career here, but she also felt a bit empty not being able to tell everyone who she was. Then there were those moments where she felt like people were going to recognize her from the Philippines here, and she just started to feel nervous and upset that she couldn't just be herself and relax into it. She was once called Horse Barbie in a tone of mockery. Somebody was trying to insult her because of her skin color and her long neck and her long, beautiful black hair. So she took it on and she said, well, that's my name now. So she was known as a Horse Barbie in the Philippines, and she's named her book this because she's really taken it on as something that she's proud of. I really loved her brilliant voice. The audiobook has some extras where she sings and she makes like noises to the sounds that she was feeling. So if you really want that kind of experiential feeling when you're listening to a book, this book has that. It's very profound and impactful to see someone choose to be their entire selves and see how strong and uplifting she is in that moment in her story. There's moments of paranoia and then a synergy that encompasses a recounting of selfhood in a way that only Rosero can describe. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Jose Antonio Vargas describes it as a groundbreaking book befitting of a groundbreaking icon. In these chaotic, uncaring, incoherent times, this memoir shines as a beacon of courage and empathy. This book is available as a physical book, downloadable audiobook, and is a book club bag. Okay, I'm here for the fiction, right? But I have to warn you that this is very dark. This is a horror historical fiction book. The Reformatory by Tanarive Due is a book based in a school in Florida where there were very terrible things that happened to young boys up until the 2000s when the school closed. The book is set in the Jim Crow era in Florida. Robert Stevens Jr. is sent to a segregated reform school after defending his sister from another boy in their community who is very well connected to very rich parents who have a lot of pull. Robbie has a talent for seeing ghosts or haints, which has been a great comfort to him because his mother passed away recently and he can see her, and that was great. But when he shows up at the reformatory, being able to see ghosts and haints becomes a very terrifying prospect. He realizes that the reformatory doesn't only have terrors coming from the sadistic warden. There are rumors of boys who have gone missing and have never come back. As he tries to survive, his sister is pulling on all of her connections to try to get him out from the outside, contacting the NAACP and government officials to keep trying to get him out of this place that is known for losing young boys and hurting them irrevocably. So this is pulled from Due's memory of an uncle who the family wouldn't talk about, who went to that very school. And after reading this book, I also watched a documentary about the school, and it is uncanny. She puts in so many details that are part of the true story. It is heartbreaking, but I find that putting this into the context of horror and of spirits, it lets a little bit of light in, and it puts some power back into this young child's life. So I found the book to be beautiful, and after this, I want to read many more of her books. The writing was really good. So this book is a beautiful blend of darkness and connection to spirit. The characters' innocence and love shine brighter than the absolute horror and pain portrayed. Kirkus Star Review says, a vividly realized page-turner, which is at once an ingenious ghost story, a white-knuckle adventure, and an illuminating, if infuriating, look back at a shameful period in American jurisprudence. This book meets the reading challenge of reading a book featuring social justice. It is available as a print book, as an audiobook, and in large print. All right, so I put you through a lot of darkness there. So this book is the complete opposite. We're back to nonfiction, but I have to tell you, this book makes me so happy. I plan to read it every single fall. 52 Ways to Walk by Annabelle Abstreets is the perfect book for this time of year when you start seeing a little more light, when hopefully the tulips come up soon, and you have more of an opportunity to go outside. Although this book, since it says 52, it's meant to be a walk for every week of the year, which I didn't believe at first, but she does manage to do it. So I just love how she combined kind of a description of the walks, an idea of how it helps you, like with mental health, but also there's a science to how it helps your physical body and what each kind of walk represents and what you can do. So how can so many walks benefit you? How did she think of them? I'm not going to say some of them don't kind of overlap, but you can walk in the cold at night backwards. I like backwards. I even added it to one of my to-dos. Like, I just want to walk backwards. In nature, while immersed in smells, just to name a few. The book walks you through, yes, I did that on purpose, the many ways that different walks can affect your way of life. And it's so creative. Like, sometimes I think I can't go out and walk for an hour, but it tells you about smaller walks and what you can observe, meditation walks, etc. So if you're already an avid walker or you just walk to the mailbox, the information and positivity in this book will get you in the mood to move around and experience the world and what your body can do while exploring it. Spirituality and health notes, from practical tips on improving one's gait to exploring new areas without a map. Streets offers dozens of innovative ways to get anyone at any age or fitness level walking. This book is available as a physical book, electronic book, and a downloadable audiobook. Thanks for taking this journey with me, everyone.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, folks, we did it. We made it to the end of the night. So last couple things, put it on your calendars now. We will be back in person with a hybrid book bash in the fall. So it's going to be Friday, August 9th. We don't have a set venue yet, but we will have it soon. If you have ever registered for a book bash, I have your email. So once we get this on the calendar, I will email anybody who's ever signed up, and you can add it to your schedule. So we will again have an in-person event, but also a virtual event if that is your preferred method. And last thing, if you missed any part of this program, if you want to share it with your friends, if you love us so much and you want to watch it again, this is recorded. You can just always go back and rewatch this at the same link that you registered for this event. So thank you so much for joining us. We love doing this event. It always makes me so excited to see everybody talking in the chat and how excited you are. So I hope that we get to see all of you in the fall in August. So thank you for joining us and have a good night.